Etsy dropshipping. Why do I think it is the most terrible thing to do now? It's not the same as it was a year ago. I know a lot of you guys in the Etsy dropshipping space have been doing it a long time. So maybe you've been doing it since, say, this time last year. You'll know the differences or the changes that have taken place since then. It's just not the same business model it was before. I think when I started doing Etsy dropshipping, it was around about a... Bloody hell, that is loud. It was around about a year, no. Yeah, it was around about a year ago when I started doing Etsy dropshipping in April 2023. It was a lot easier than it is now. And back then, you could basically do whatever you wanted on the platform in terms of images and whatever, and you wouldn't get taken down. You wouldn't have any listing deactivations. You wouldn't have, and you'd rarely have store bans. It would happen, but it'd be a lot less common than it is now. Whereas now you have Etsy stores which are basically only lasting maybe 1 or 2 months if you're lucky. Like it's really got to that stage now where your stores are only lasting 1 or 2 months if you're lucky. And that's one of the reasons why Etsy dropshipping is such a terrible business model, is A, because of how often the store bans happen, and B, it's so difficult to get back on the platform once you've been banned. Obviously, you guys know there's methods, so I probably won't say them here, of course, but there's methods, obviously, we can get back on the platform, and a lot of people use them and abuse them, basically, to get back on the platform consistently, and they're not sustainable at all. These methods that you have to use to get back on the platform are not sustainable at all. And maybe you can keep doing this a few times, but it gets to a certain point where you start thinking in your own head, is it even worth it? And how long can I keep going on like this for? How many more stores can I even create at this point? So a lot of you guys in the Etsy dropshipping space, I get a lot of messages from people on Twitter saying, hey Ed, I see this business model that you're doing on Etsy is slightly different to Etsy dropshipping, and they want to get into it because it's a more sustainable version. So that's what we're talking about today. I'm talking about the differences between print on demand on Etsy and doing dropshipping. So dropshipping is ultimately a terrible business model to do if you want to have any sort of long-term sustainability. I think it's probably a very easy way to generate cash. It's probably one of the easiest, Etsy dropshipping is probably one of the easiest business models to generate like a quick amount of cash from. Say you needed to quickly generate like £1,000. Etsy dropshipping is probably the way to do it. But if you need to generate any sort of long-term consistent income, you want to basically escape the 9 to 5, then you need to do something which isn't Etsy dropshipping. Well, you could do Etsy dropshipping, but I think a much better alternative is to just do Etsy print on demand. Because basically, when you're doing Etsy dropshipping, one of the most common misconceptions that I hear people say, they think, oh, okay, you're on Etsy, you're competing against mums, right? If you're doing Etsy dropshipping, you're not competing against mums, you're competing with other dropshippers. So you're literally competing with other people like you that are trying to make money on the platform. So whereas if you're doing print on demand on Etsy, it's a little bit different. So you are competing against the mums when you're doing print on demand. No mums are dropshipping on the platform, okay? So if someone tells you, oh, come on, do Etsy dropshipping because you can compete against mums, you can compete against the old Etsy sellers, the typical Etsy sellers, don't listen to them because they're lying to you. They are completely lying to you. It's not true. And I mean, I don't know how people get away with saying that because it's just so blatantly obvious that that isn't the case. But yeah, so what's the difference between print on demand on Etsy and Etsy dropshipping? So essentially with Etsy dropshipping, it's a lot, it's not even necessarily easier, but it's just easier to sort of generate cash with. With print on demand, you're gonna have to test a lot more things, but as soon as you find something that works, you can just stick to it and double down on it and then go with that. Whereas when you're doing dropshipping, you sort of have to test a little bit, loads of different products, and then once you found the winning product, of course, you just move on to another store because it's not worth spending time on that store because more than likely that store's gonna get banned. With print on demand, you can double down on your winners and just keep listing on that store. Like you can with Etsy dropshipping, you're basically planning to have your store banned, whereas with print on demand, you can basically plan over the course of years on the platform. You can make a plan which is going to last you years on the platform. So that's what I do with my Etsy print on demand stores. All I'm focusing on is how can I make this store be the #1 store in the niche that it's in in a year's time. And that's what I think about. So I basically plan for a year, whereas with Etsy dropshipping, you'd probably only plan for, I don't know, a month and then get some listings out and then that's it. And then you move on to something else. So that's really one of the big selling points with Etsy print on demand, is that you can work on something over a long period of time. And with your print on demand store, you can basically just list, say you're putting out 3 listings a day, which is perfectly attainable for anyone who's just putting a couple hours a day into the platform. So if you're just if you're, I almost ran over a bird. If you're just putting a couple hours a day into the platform, putting out 3 listings a day, that's just going to compound over time. You're going to slowly start having more listings that are consistently selling. Let's say if you work on your Etsy print on demand store for 3 months, over those 3 months you put out 270 listings because you're putting out 3 listings a day. You're probably going to have 10 or 20 listings which are consistently selling multiple times per week. And that's one of the greatest things about print on demand, whereas with dropshipping you wouldn't be able to do that. You'd be lucky if you even have a store after 3 months, to be honest, and that's not exaggerating at all. That is being perfectly honest. You're very lucky to have a store after 3 months of doing Etsy dropshipping. So that's what I love about print on demand. You can just put out a bunch of listings, and also when you're hiring virtual assistants for your dropshipping store, it has literally no benefit at all, because you're only going to generate X amount of cash from your dropshipping stores, whereas with print on demand you're going to generate X amount of cash flow. So it's a complete difference. You're generating cash flow with print on demand, and you're generating cash with dropshipping because it is just pumping and dumping. And that is another thing, which is why print on demand is such a better business model, is that you're actually learning a skill. You're not learning any skills at all when you're doing dropshipping. It doesn't teach you anything. You don't learn how to use Photoshop, or you might learn the basics, but you won't know how to create good designs. And that's a really good and powerful skill that you learn from print on demand. Even if you're doing print on demand, at the end of the day, if you decide that you don't want to continue doing it, you're going to have that skill of Photoshop which you've built up. So you're going to be able to create your designs on Photoshop. You could even go into something that's freelance instead if you just decide that's what you want to do. You find you've got a passion for designing. So you're learning many different skills with print on demand. Whereas with dropshipping, you don't learn anything. Dropshipping is literally just a pump and dump business model. It's only good for generating cash. You don't learn any skills over the long term. I think maybe the only skills you learn is mental tolerance, like having a good mindset, because it's so mentally challenging to just try and keep going with dropshipping when all you're doing is just pumping and dumping cash at the end of the day. You're just pumping stores. You might work in a store for 2 months and you feel like killing yourself after the store gets banned because you've just been working on this for 2 months. That's what happened to me. I think in July or August, somewhere around there last year, I had my first store ban, and I was like, oh my god, I want to kill myself, because this store was doing like $2.5 grand a month. I thought that was everything at the time, and I just didn't know about store bans, so I got banned, and then I thought, oh, my life is over. And that is one of the worst feelings that you're going to have, and I guarantee everyone watching this video, or most people watching this video who've been doing Etsy dropshipping, have probably had that feeling before. But so the main differences is between Etsy print on demand and Etsy dropshipping is that Etsy POD is going to bring you a skill set, and it's going to bring you stable cash flow. You're going to be able to work on something over a longer period of time, and even if you decide, imagine you build up a store to 5k a month in profit. If you build up a store to 5k a month in profit on Etsy, that store is going to be worth about 50k at least on the low end, I would say. So if you have a store which is doing 5k a month profit, it's going to be worth whatever it makes over a year that someone could buy it for. And I know people that have exited their Etsy stores, so that's one of the benefits as well. You can't exit an Etsy dropshipping store because they don't last long. No one's going to want to buy it. And that's one of the greatest things about POD. You're actually building something that's worth money. You're not just working for the cash flow that you're generating, you're working for the eventual exit of your store. And if you're really building brands like I am, I'm fully focused on building brands. I'm focused on everything over the long term. I'm just doing everything with a long-term focus, focusing on the exit as well. Building something that's actually worth money is everything that I'm focusing on. What is this person doing? Silly Fiat 500 driver, right? And they're committing a U-turn or something. I got no idea. But yeah, anyway, that's what the hell? This is why you should not be able to drive. Jesus Christ. Yeah, who gave that? On the P plates as well. But yeah, you're working for the exit. You're not just slaving away for the cash flow. Etsy POD is way better. Don't do dropshipping. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your energy. You learn nothing. You just pump and dump some cash. Take your pick. Up to you.